Hey, what's up, y'all? Matt here with Hatch and another episode of Built By. We took a few weeks off, had a few projects we had to get through. Podcast is back on the rails this week, though. I'm very excited. And today's episode is a great kickoff because you're going to either love it or you're going to hate it. And when I say love it or hate it, I can already tell the ones that are going to hate this episode are the ones that kind of live by that credence of this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we're going to continue to do it. Like we talk about in the podcast, Vic, Son, and I, that is the biggest barrier to innovation. There's different ways to do it, and there's ways that people are building businesses. And I think that's kind of the niche that I found. And what I find interesting is that there's so many people out there kind of innovating things. And my guest a couple of weeks ago, Greta Bayrami, is a testament that you don't have to do things like everyone says you do. You don't have to canvas. You don't have to door knock. You can build a business and honestly build a better business in your market if you just do it a little bit differently and maybe focus a little bit on the market. And that innovativeness and outside the box thinking is exactly why I'm excited about today's episode with Vic Son. So Vic Son is the CEO and founder over at OneLeg Marketing. They're a marketing agency that was founded in the middle of a pandemic, but they've already seen 500% growth over the last 6 months. It's crazy. Vic is one of the most sought after marketing minds in the industry just because he has a different mentality when it comes to promoting your business and getting your business out there and not wasting money and not wasting people's time. And we're going to dive into all of his ideologies, what he thinks about how he would grow a business from the ground, the technology that he's telling companies to get, all of these cool things that I think are going to drive a lot of value for you. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick this episode off. Again, this is Vic Son, who's the CEO and founder over at OneLeg Marketing. I hope you enjoy.
This is a podcast for home improvement and home services marketing. This is Built By.
You've got to be adaptable. You've got to find a way to accommodate an uncomfortable customer.
If you're not getting to home advisor leads in the first 5 minutes, you shouldn't even do it.
Hopefully we're eating their lunch while they're trying to get back up and running.
Been in the home improvement, remodeling, manufacturing space for the last 15 years. Mm-hmm. And, the last 8-9 years, I was, an executive for one of the larger home improvement companies out here in California. And we had serviced other states like Michigan. In the 8 years that I was there, I was able to help grow the company to close to about $90 million. Started off at about $6-8 million. Wow. And I was in charge of mostly marketing, but it segued into technology and innovation. And I had a really good relationship with my former boss, who really tolerated, I would say, and had the stomach for a bit of my panache for experimentation and doing things that was in opposition to the traditional things that this space was doing. Mm-hmm. And so I think we grew because of that. And my focus has really been marketing, technology, right? Yeah. And marrying those two things in innovation. And now I obviously opened up OneLeg. And that was during the pandemic.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, starting a company during a pandemic is quite an interesting beginning building block. But you guys have seen success, and I think it's because you have such a different ideology when it comes to marketing. And you referenced this talking about your time at your last company, but your big thing is marketing waste, and that's really the tagline for OneLeg and cutting down marketing waste. For the listeners, can you describe what that is and your take there?
It's really the marketing pollution that surrounds us and that encroaches on our lives every day. It's in home improvement, remodeling, DTC, manufacturing, which is all the places that I play in now. With our company does that, but it's ads that you ignore. It's marketing promotions that annoy you. It's the thousands and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that are spent on campaigns that don't really enrich your life. It really just annoys you. And it's pollution, really. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's pollution because A, you don't want it. B, you didn't ask for it. And C, it's just terrible where you don't even get any type of reaction. And this is how I kind of define that is a reaction or engagement is not just being able to see it, right? It's you truly thinking, and that could be a negative thing. And a lot of people are actually afraid of that stuff, but which they shouldn't be, right? But this waste is really the things that really make our lives worse, right? You know, you just think about the emails and the thousands of emails that maybe you get in a week that you're just like delete. You know, you don't even read it. You know, people knocking on your door when you're just like, I don't want anyone knocking on my door. If I want your service, I will go and look for you, right? Calls that, you know, 37 calls in a week that you'd get because you happen to stumble across their website, you fill out a form, now you're regretting it. That's waste. You know what I mean? And then essentially you're polluting the planet because let's face it, if you're ignoring something, and that is really what's happening, people are, you know, getting anywhere between 7,000 to 8,000 messages a day, right? How many of them can you really remember? I mean, if you think about that.
I mean, that includes like radio ads, billboards, emails, like just marketing messages daily. Yeah,
and it's really it's contributing to the anxiety of people, right? To the type of you know, we're almost like just so numb by it that you even build habits around it. You swipe, you know, to go and delete stuff, or you just, you know, you pick up stuff in the mail and you throw it right in the trash. You know, and I think that's what I'm against. I think, you know, born out of the pandemic, which I didn't plan. I planned my exit, you know, in 2019, and I knew I was going to do it in 2020. And the month that I opened the company, the pandemic hit right in February. But, you know, I think born out of the pandemic, it's even more important that, you know, listeners out there understand that people are, you know, have gotten all this digital stuff, and I think we're a necessity. Like my company has been built as, you know, kind of the antithesis, the anti-hero to the, if you want to call, you know, the other advertising agencies or digital marketing agencies that have become kind of the pillars of building this amount of this machine that just chugs all this waste.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's incredible. I mean, you know, not only taking the leap to start your own company, but starting your own company with such a different outlook on things. And I mean, home improvement industry itself, and I've been in it for 2 years, I've seen it's a very brash, in your face type of way that they've always done things. So what was your, like, you know, starting the company with this different marketing background and trying to spread this message, which is, you know, stop doing how you've always done it, right? And how is that message being received and with the companies that you're working with? Is it hard for them to kind of get over that, you know, the hump?
So I think that I could say officially that I started the company last year, but we really just started about 6 months ago, because that's when our website came up, and I was doing consulting really most of 2020. So we're 6 months old, and since then we've ballooned from, you know, one client or two clients that I had that, and now we're approaching double digits, right? And I think we're going to pace about $1 million this year, which is crazy if you think about, wow, it started 6 months ago and it's your first year, right? And I think the success is a testament to the companies now starting to detest what they're so used to. You know, there's still a lot of companies. I mean, we've spoken to a ton of companies that they're just way too traditional. Our ideas are way too radical for them. And when you really kind of nitpick at that, it's not that our ideas and our approach is radical. It's just they are not used to it. They're afraid, right? If you've been doing a program for so long, you know, I've got a client who's, you know, been around for 29 years, 30 years this year, and they've done canvassing since day one. The owner cut his teeth doing canvassing. It started a company, with canvassers, and the pandemic literally obliterated his workforce. And the company was so focused on canvassing, and that was their biggest part of their workforce, spending $150,000 a month on payroll. Wow. And when the pandemic was like, you can't knock on doors, you can't meet people face to face. I mean, it just got obliterated. And that was a perfect opportunity for us to go and say, hey, look, there are other alternatives. And when they saw that, they really embraced it. They still went back to canvassing. Because but I realized it's really just based out of habit. Right. So your question, the long short of it is, people need to be baby step. And that's the thing, what our companies are starting to get really good at this point, is we don't take them from step 1 to 10. We basically go, look, we're going to go step 1. Let's do step 1. Yeah. And if you don't, burst in flames, we'll go to step 2. Yeah. And I think that proof there is that our company has grown into companies that we continue to work with, continue to sign up with us with longer term contracts. They've established that there is a better way, and it's such it's more effective than efficient. Mm-hmm. And I think the people who do not want that, our company or our messaging or, our ideas, simply because they're just so used to it. If they spend $10,000 and they're not getting 100 leads, it's like it's the end of the world. Yeah. And they can't even think past the I didn't get 100 leads, when it's like, okay, well, you made 5 sales out of the 100 leads, and you spend 10 grand. But with this program, you'll spend 10 grand, you'll get 65, but you'll make 10 sales. Yeah. And they just can't marry those two things together. Like the ROI on the spend. Yeah. Right. But again, they get stuck in this, you know what I mean? Owners are we know in this industry, and I'll probably regret saying this at some point, but they like to think that they're the experts. Right. And then they go, whoa, I know what a cost per lead is, and I know how to calculate that. But at the end of the day, why do you care about a cost per lead if the marketing return is good? Right? Who cares about the cost per lead? If it doubles, great. But at the end of the day, the way that you go to your accountant or your team is go, did we make money and did we hit that goal? If you did on the marketing cost and it's low, so what? So what if the cost per lead went up? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's fascinating. We can spend too much time thinking about that top of funnel, like getting all these leads in. But what really matters is bottom of the funnel. Is it actually like contributing to revenue? That's fascinating. Vic, I want to dive in a little bit, and we're going to get controversial here, because I think that's how you're setting yourself apart from the crowd, is going against the grain, right? And I want to dive into canvassing here. And I think I found you because on LinkedIn you had a post where it just simply said, canvassing must die. Talking about your time with that owner and, his experience with canvassing. And, you were talking about a lot of things that make sense that I think a lot of owners and sales managers, marketing managers may not be thinking about, which is like hidden costs and things like that. So tell me about your ideology of, canvassing and why you think there's a better way to do things.
Well, canvassing, it's a really outmoded way of really generating leads. First of all, it's all about persuasion. It's all about physical. It's brute effort in generating, revenue, for example, right, through marketing. And nowadays, if you just think about it, when you look at the metrics, right, you just look at the pure metrics of it, less than 5% of the country's home improvement companies, remodeling companies that do canvassing can actually make that efficient and effective and profitable. Okay. Their lead costs, their marketing costs are way up in the double-digit 20s or 30s, sometimes even 50s. And it's just them rationalizing something that, because they're so used to it. Okay. Right. So my thought on this is if I look at people nowadays, people have changed in terms of their buying behavior. in their intent right. So, canvassing was a good methodology, for generating leads back in the day when, you were in towns where there were no malls and people had to go to you to sell their goods, right?
Mhm.
Now, just think about it this way. When you need something, what do?
Go to Google immediately.
Immediately from your phone,
Yeah, exactly.
right? From your phone. And it's not like, let me go wait for somebody to knock on my door.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So, and then if you think about it, with the increasing amount of security systems that are being sold out there and the proliferation of it, Nest Systems, Amazon, Ring, because people are afraid, like, you're always concerned, hey, there's strangers in your neighborhood. So there's so many things on top of the fact that these are very inefficient campaigns where only 1 out of 10 canvassers will succeed. There's an attrition rate of over 500%, sometimes up to, sometimes you get lucky and maybe you get 200%, so turning over the entire team twice, at the end of the year. There's so much waste to do what? To produce a 5 maybe % return on that.
Yeah.
Literally, if you wanted bulk, you just think about digital marketing. You post an ad somewhere, you get millions of impressions right off the gate. You don't have to knock on one door.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's just, I always ask this question, do the majority of people want it? This is so simple. Think about the simple human truth now. Do people want it? Now, if the answer to that question is, well, do you want some stranger that doesn't announce when they're going to come?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who they are. You've done no background check. And on top of that, they're going to knock on your door and start asking you for personal information. Right. And you have to open the door for them. Right. And stand there. If you want that, great. Let's do that. Let's be creative with that. But if I survey 100 people, just think about it. How many of them will actually say, oh, I would love to do that?
Yeah. Personally, like my wife and I run into that problem all the time. The orchid man coming around spraying for bugs.
Right. And you go next door, right? Neighbors app, people are like, hey, there's a stranger in my neighborhood and they're lurking around. You see this stuff. So, the question might be, should you do it if people don't want it?
Waste. It comes down to waste right there. Throwing a lot of money down the well. You've got, not only the salaries you have to pay the canvassers, but also the cost of the trucks driving around and the training that goes into it with the turnover, right?
I'll tell you something. Those are all things that people always forget, right? Like the recruitment costs, the training costs, the hiring, the firing, the turnover, the fact that it's an inefficient campaign, the fact that people don't want it, the fact that you get complaints, the fact that you have to pay for workers' comp and the cars and the food and the licenses per city, and then you have to renew that, and then the clothing and the welfare of and that's if you do everything right.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing that people almost always discount when it comes to canvassing: your reputation.
Oh yeah, true.
Your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about it. I'm going to go and put my brand's reputation in the hands of a person that gets turned over all the time. So they're not bought in with my company. They're underpaid, 10 to 12 bucks an hour. It's not like they're loyal to the company. They probably just started. Okay. Right. They're probably not succeeding. They're going to be sweaty. They're going to be tired. They're going to be walking around. And this person is going to show up to a door, sweaty, disgruntled, probably underpaid. I'll be tired, right? And this person is going to represent my brand.
Yeah.
How much?
Get-go. First impressions do matter, right?
Yeah. And so you think about this, like people like, oh, they generate a lead. You know how many bad reviews and just the damage you've done sending this person around? It's not this person's fault. It's your fault as an owner. It's your fault as a company. You're tarnishing your brand. And I got to tell you, the companies that I've worked with that have canvassing, that's one of the first things they try to help, like come to me and say, how would you solve this? I'll tell you how I'll solve it. I'll shut down this program and put the resources somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
That's how you solve that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, when you have this is what I'm like kind of interested in. I'm kind of blown away by is, you've got these businesses that the owner, like you said, they built their business by doing it with canvassing, and I'm still seeing it everywhere. Everybody thinks this is the way that you have to build a home improvement business. Not everybody, but the majority of people, right? So you go to, the company you consulted with, very successful. He had built it with canvassing, and when you present this, you said there was pushback, right? And he did go back to canvassing, but you had the benefit of the pandemic, I guess, to really say, let's try something new. Let's try something out of the box. So how did you get that like buy-in from him to do this? And, what did you do? What was the success that you saw there?
It was actually quite simple. We said, let's do a test. Half your team's still around, and I'll take half the budget. And if I don't triple their performance of let's say the 50,000 versus your 50,000, right? I'll say we will refund your fees. My company will refund the fees for 1 month. It was a 90-day test. So it's just like, okay, cool. I mean, you're going to get leads, right? It was a good deal. And I was willing to make those because I was my business, but I knew that we would kill it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so evidence and proof is the way you do it. Right. Mm-hmm. We put it in Facebook. We developed their call center. We redeveloped some parts of their website. We worked with their digital marketing agency, and we coached them through it, which is kind of weird, right? Because you're coaching another company that's supposed to know what they're doing. Yeah. And lo and behold, the 50,000 had one of the low, like it was in the low single digits, 5, 6, 7% cost. Mm. And to me, it was like, there you go. There's your proof, right? Mm. And there's another company in Portland, it's based out of Portland that consulted with me, and they're close to about $120 million. And again, canvassing, right? And one of the things that I said was, look, if you're really bent on doing this, there is a way, but it's not knocking on the doors, right? You follow simple human truths. A neighborhood wants to enrich their neighborhood, not have a bunch of strangers knocking on doors. So here's what you do, right? You go to the city, you get a permit, you work with the town or the city or whatever, and you go and say, look, we're going to hold an event. We're going to sponsor the event, right? Do you have events? Most of the nice neighborhoods will have some sort of event, like, hey, there's this dog event right at the park. Yeah. Right now, last year, obviously with the pandemic, this was challenging, but now this is more doable, and that is what I would do as an alternative to canvassing. Is I would go and work with the neighborhoods, and I would host these events at the parks where families would come. If you had a pet event, sponsor that. Get some swag. Now your canvassers are now promoters or brand ambassadors in this case, but now you're attracting. You're not persuading.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you do that, you create an environment where people are having fun, they're bringing their families, they're more likely to go and generate high buying intent leads, as opposed to somebody begrudgingly opening the door or like saying, I don't really want to do this, but you're at my door and I want you to go away. I'm just too polite to tell you to go somewhere. You know what I mean? And that's why you get leads with canvassers who are like, oh, I got 10 leads, and one of them go through as a demo. And they're like, oh, that's pretty good. No, it's not. It's terrible. You've just damaged your brand. So I would do the events. I would have teams where, and I covered this in one of my podcasts, and I said, I kind of use that as a model. I said, look, if you have an exterior product, get one team of people, and what you do is you drone the neighborhood. Yeah. Right. You take photos, you do all of those things because it's public space, it's airspace right now, at least at this point. And what you do is you come up with, you take photos, and you can use that if you have an app or whatever technology that you can kind of implement. Do the measurement, send them a nice little postcard. It's kind of very personal. Like, here's your home with the new roof, with new solar, with, could this be you? Right? Come up with those things. People want that. People will go like, hey, look at this. They my house with new stuff on it. Mm-hmm. Right. And I would consider that more of, marketing and creative ways of doing things, as opposed to kind of, just using brute force, going to a neighborhood, dropping, a van full of people, strangers, sweaty, knocking on doors, damaging your brand. coming up with these inefficiencies. Have people come to you, and neighborhoods would love you because if you sponsor events, you sponsor a park, you sponsor the materials at the park with your logo, they will do that. I mean, most of the canvassing crews nowadays that continue to exist, one of their parts of their methodology is looking for good neighborhoods.
Yeah. Good
neighborhoods have parks. Good neighborhoods have school districts that, maybe, hey, donate something in there, come up with a nice event, right? Good neighborhoods have, they're very tightly knit on Nextdoor. Go and advertise on Nextdoor, right? Yeah. Sponsor something in there, build some goodwill. This way, if you do end up still knocking on the door, they'd be like, well, they are enriching my neighborhood.
Yeah. See, that's what's fascinating. Like, you're providing value in all these scenarios up front to the homeowners, and they're going to be more, it's the give, ask mentality, right? It's fascinating because talking about brand reputation, and I've seen this firsthand where I've seen somebody post on Facebook in my neighborhood that an older couple got taken advantage of by somebody that knocked on their door, walked on their roof and said, oh, you need an entire new roof and you need to get this and that. And the comments on that were so damaging to that brand, but then again, they brought it on themselves. And you have these people out in the streets, you don't know what they're saying, you don't know what they're talking about, and they could be easily damaging it. It's fascinating, just providing value and enriching the neighborhood, like you said.
Yeah, and again, there's no continuity in it. People who get into canvassing. So I also think about the human element, which, I get it. Companies will not think about their people. But I think that's where we're different. And we go and say, well, look, you're providing a low income, low level position that has no significant, kind of path to a better career. And if there were, it's like, oh, you'll be a supervisor, will bump you for $2 more an hour. Whoop-de-doo. Mm-hmm. Like, come on. Like, are you really providing an opportunity? Are you exploiting people? Yeah. And that's the part right there that, again, reputation. You get high turnover. What do you think you'll be getting in Glassdoor? Yeah. You think you'll be getting 5-star reviews from people who there's like 30 people this month that you turned over, that you made them walk for 5 miles. They thought it was going to be fun because you sold them on this little seminar of yours to recruit them. And then they figured, holy crap, I'm getting paid $10-12 an hour to walk, right, this much. And to get door slammed in my face, cursed out, dogs running after me, right? Police trying to go and arrest me, right? Homeowners, the crazy ones trying to kidnap me and bring me inside their home. For what? $10-12? No, thank you.
Right.
I'm going to go in Glassdoor and I'm going to prevent this by bad mouthing your company and saying, oh, these guys are terrible. And I've only, again, you basically get skewered both ways. I would not know why a company other than ego. I've just been doing it. And here's another thing. And again, I'm not afraid to go and call it, I'm going to call it what it is, but consultants in this industry, they're notorious for let's do brand ambassador programs and canvassing because it works. You know what? I see all these stuff on LinkedIn. Oh, look at me. I'm training. I would like to see them go and revisit that a year later. And say, I trained 20 people and I want to look at those faces. A year from now, there's still 20 people in there. Yeah. It's noise. And I get flack for it from my team. My team is like, don't call them out, please. Because, we're going to lose business. I said, no, we're not. Because those people, if they're continuing to do that and their ego is to the point where they'd rather waste the money, they're not for us, because I will not work with those companies anyway, right? My team refuses to. We have people who want change, who want to provide enriching marketing and advertising, build their brand doing it, and generate revenue and profits. We don't need to force ourselves to go and say, well, can you just make this a bit better, because it's a terrible campaign? No. Sometimes you just got to say no. Right. No, I will not damage my brand because you're interested in doing yours.
Yeah. That's right, man. It's fascinating. And you've given some examples too, and I really want to dive in here. I know we're going to be running up against time soon, but let's say that you're starting a home improvement company. What are some of the things that you think every home improvement company needs in place when it comes to, technology, if it's processes? What are the essentials in your mind?
Essentials, I think there's so many. I mean, really, and I've worked with a bunch of startups to know that there's just an infinite amount of things. But you need a marketing and advertising plan, right? You can't be shooting from the hip. You have to have a plan, and the plan has to be defined. That's going to be part of your brand, right? A lot of companies, when they do the marketing side of things, they go, "I want leads." Well, you just want leads? Like, what's your ICP? What's your ideal customer profile? Who are they, right? Have you drawn out their user journey? Have you put together a plan where this is what's going to happen, right? And I think that's one of the essentials. The other part of there is we have a value called omotenashi, and I think in this day and age, it's appalling that that people don't subscribe to this. And omotenashi is really the philosophy: customer is God, right? It's a Japanese philosophy where you anticipate what people need and provide that to them without expecting anything in return. In Asian tradition, you go to stores, they just bow, they say, they say welcome. You don't see that in America, right? Because appallingly in the US, customer service, the standard is like, embarrassingly low. So I think that's the other part, is having great customer service. Okay. That philosophy drives your, not only the intention, but also the delivery of the things that you do, from your installation, right? Because you start thinking, okay, sell the job, right? Now I've got to install it. What do people want? People want to communicate. So you probably want to have, a good communication system. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to have a call center, but you should have these elements where you can text people, contact them via phone if they do want it, emails, right, when they want it. And again, that boils down to the first thing, which is having a plan, right? And knowing that. And I think the very last part there would be just leadership. I think it's, a lot of contractors start off, because they think they can install a job, they can develop there's been companies that were built by people who are in marketing and sales, but overwhelmingly, there's a lot of contractors who are started because the person themselves was a practitioner, right? Just because you can install something really, really well doesn't mean customers are going to be happy. That's an expected thing nowadays. Yeah. So the leadership side is know that, you need good people, right? You can't do it on your own. And I think that's the very last element, is the leadership, knowing that you're going to have good people, the best people. Yeah. And without that, I think the rest of it kind of falls apart.
Yeah. And I've had conversations where people realized they weren't very good at running the actual business and working on the business versus working in the business. So, maybe sometimes it's finding a partner, pivoting, and doing something along those lines. Yeah, that's fascinating, Vic. And I want to dive into what you were talking about. Not everyone needs a call center, but in your past, I know you've had experience with call centers. And at what point and at what level, when it comes to communicating with customers, do you think a call center or contact center or whatever you want to call it, when is that kind of essential in your mind?
I think it's essential, and to put context into it, based on your model of communicating with the clients, right? So the traditional model for call centers in the home improvement space, for example, has predominantly been they generate leads. The call center now tries to convert on them by scheduling those appointments, right? To get those salespeople, the demos, into sales. And I think that's just a very barbaric way of looking at the call center, because now you look at technology nowadays, people don't want to get phone calls, right? Robocall. I mean, just think about it. You see a number on your phone that you don't recognize. Maybe you fill out a form and you're maybe expecting, but like, what do you do when you see a number that you don't recognize on your phone and it's ringing?
Yeah, I've got this app called RoboBlocker, so I just ignore it, and it runs through a spam database. Right,
and I think that the part there now is that call centers, they have started to evolve, right? Where AI and and SMS messages and the ability for reps to be able to email. Those are things now that need to be part of the augmenting of the position.
Right.
I still believe that people want to speak to people, but you should give people that option. You should give them the freedom to choose, right? And I've built call centers, and I've seen it grow from it was just phone calls to the staff being able to go and set appointments, confirm it, all one person, to them being able to set, with text messages and emails. And it works because the more you upskill them. So I think it's really going to be defined by the organization. Organizations that kind of look at their call center as, well, all you're doing is setting appointments. It's like canvassing. You're really setting them up for failure, because who wants to just keep calling, right? I mean, just you play the numbers. I'm a numbers fanatic when it comes to Excel spreadsheets and making sure it works, as you need that. But I'm also the person who thinks about things in the way that you can't fit everything neatly in a spreadsheet. And the things in the world that continue to remain as a problem, they cannot be solved through logic. If they were, they'd be solved. So the existing problems in the world nowadays, you can't solve them through logic, right? So they exist and they continue to exist because the only way to solve them is through the emotional part of it, not the logic part. And people refuse to understand that, right? So call centers, if you're not upskilling your staff, they're not doing more, you're not using text, and you're not giving them the freedom to communicate with the clients, you're gonna get bumped off, because people now are evolving, right? People are more into in service and automation.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just think about it. People now cook less because they can order food from an app and be brought to your door. And I pay a premium, but I enjoy the rest of my time, and I don't talk to a human being.
Yeah.
And I don't have to drive somewhere, right? I can check into a hotel and buy, my tickets and everything without talking to anyone or being hassled for 15 minutes. I can schedule my appointment on a website or on an app. Why in the world would you build a call center where the interaction that they have is like 7 to 15 minutes of scheduling an appointment with a person and then sending that call to another human being to confirm? It boggles me.
That's fascinating.
It's waste. And this is my favorite thing, right? Last year, the phrases, right? We have this in my company where we go, what are the top phrases? One of our top phrases, but that's always how we've done it. We hear that, and we like put it with dollar in the jar, in a virtual jar, every time somebody says that. It's like that's how we've been doing it. That's what we've succeeded with. And to me, look, if somebody is in front of us and they go, that's how we've been doing, and that's what we've succeeded, and what you're presenting is we've never succeeded with that. My only question after that is, so why are we having a conversation?
Right.
I mean, if you like it so much, if you think that that's so great, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right? What's my team doing on this phone call?
It's crazy, man. Yeah. I mean, that phrase is the biggest barrier to innovation in any industry, but especially home improvement. I feel like it's slowly but surely getting there. And I know the pandemic exacerbated it and kind of sped things up a little bit, but companies are going back to some of the old ways they've always done it. So it's really interesting, man. I know we're up against time here, Vic. So I have one last question I love to ask every guest, and the answers are always interesting, and I keep it vague on purpose. But what's the number one piece of advice you would give to anyone in the home improvement industry right now?
One, okay, that is a good question. I would say, if it was advice, okay, and it's to anyone, like, or is it to an owner, like?
Just anyone. Just keeping it vague,
Right.
It makes it more difficult.
Yeah. I think I would go and say, not everything can be explained, through numbers, and again, getting fitted neatly into a spreadsheet, to that little field.
Yeah.
just because you can quantify something doesn't make it true, or it doesn't make it that it's right. It doesn't make it where it's what you're supposed to be doing, right? Our company, we came up with this. We like to call ourselves the left brain technology, experts. And I think that simple human truths, should be the focus. Everybody else is so good with numbers. You should be good with people.
Yeah. The qualitative versus quantitative argument, right?
Yeah. And the irrational, the illogical, and those sort of things that people don't seem to focus on, because they're so focused on, marketing. I'm in marketing and advertising, and, those pale in comparison to simple human truths that really affect people. Right. And if there was that advice is focus on that, focus on the humans and not the numbers, focus on the people element of things, because again, just because it makes sense to launch 10,000 emails a week, right? Especially if you've got a list and you've got content to serve. It makes sense to go and call someone 37 times just because they haven't picked up the phone and they did fill out a lead form, and you want to make sure you maximize, the value.
Right.
When you look at the people don't want 37 calls. They want one text message, maybe one phone call, and that's it. Right. They want, they want you to let them make those decisions. Right. It makes sense not to give people, a quote, to leave them a quote when you finish your presentation, because they might peddle it to other companies and get other quotes and compare that. But people want you to leave that quote. Yeah. Right.
It makes sense. And people want to buy, they don't want to be sold to, right? That's
exactly. And if you did that, I think that advice would turn into the happiness. And again, we are, I hate calling ourselves an agency, because I really don't see us as such. We're a customer experience co-op, right? We cooperate and collaborate with companies and other partners. And the one thing that we will not do is work with jerks. And so I would say that I'll take my own advice in the sense that if I sense that the person doesn't care about the people element, right, and they focus too much on the numbers, it's not exciting for us, and that's not something that's worthwhile. So focus on the people, and I think that will bring you success. And if it doesn't, it's the right thing to do, I think.
Yeah. Well, Vic, you nailed it. It's that's why I love that question.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a good question.
The answers that come out are always fascinating, Vic. And we're up against time now, and I think this has been a great episode, and thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listeners that want to learn more about you or OneLeg, and I know you have an awesome podcast. I've listened to a few episodes myself. Where should they go? Where can they find you?
It's simple. Our website is zeromarketingwaste.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn, right? And really follow the Flamingo. We're on all the major social networks. But I think, I would like for everyone to just go on LinkedIn, connect with me, right? Whether you're an existing customer or just have some topic, like, you'll find me on LinkedIn. I mean, that's where most people are, so.
Yeah, they'll find you on LinkedIn, and they'll get challenged. And that's my favorite interactions, Vic. When you bring that outsider perspective. It's awesome.
Yeah, I like your posts, and, they're compelling. And to me, look, I'd rather go and see posts where I see, like, even for me, if somebody challenges me, I prefer that, even if it's negative, because the alternative is they ignored it, and that, to me, that's worse. I'd rather have somebody go and say something negative, even though it's negative, because I prefer that to the alternative of that post being ignored. That's waste.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Vic, again, thanks so much for coming on, man. We'll definitely have to do this again, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.